Alright, hello exiles, this is Starburp here, also known as Kool-Aid Cry, and today I'm going to be making a crafting guide on Path of Exiles 2. There is a lot of moving parts in this game, but it is not terribly hard to understand. It's mostly easy, there's just a lot to each system in this game, so hopefully my guides can help you guys get through this, so you can, further enjoy the game. So let me go ahead and start by going over each crafting material and what they do. So this is called a transmutation. It comes in 3 different stages. A lot of the main crafting materials come in 3 different stages. I'll get into what those mean later. But an orb of transmutation allows you to upgrade a normal, being a white item, to a blue item. A orb of augmentation allows you to upgrade a blue item to have a secondary stat. A regal orb allows you to upgrade a blue item, being a magic item, to a rare item. Another way you can do this is by picking any of these essences that do various different things, and you can search what they do by just typing in fire. For example, I'll show you the fire ones. And you can select them instead, but they won't roll as high. They'll be maximum tier 3. But you can do a regal orb to upgrade a magic to a rare. It's actually turning out pretty good for me so far. You can do an exalted orb to add an item or a modifier onto a rare item, similar to the other blue orb, except for rares now. And lastly, you have a chaos orb, which I'm not going to use on this item, which can remove a random modifier, is what we call them. It will remove a random modifier, and then it will add a different modifier onto the item. You have an Orb of Alchemy, which are mostly used for jewels and waystones, because jewels and waystones always roll tier 1. But this will add 4 random modifiers onto an item. You can use this if the item is normal quality, being white, or magic quality, being blue. You cannot use it if the item is yellow, being rare. How this becomes useful is, let's say that you have a jewel that is let's use it on this as an example. Let's say that you have this is a jewel. We'll use the ring. Let's say I don't like these 2, but I don't want to use a chaos orb, or another thing that you can use is called an orb of annulment, which removes something but doesn't add something back like a chaos orb does. It just removes something random. So let's say if I don't like any of these, I can use a orb of alchemy, and then that will completely re-random all the stuff that's on it. You can use a orb of chance only on normal items, and it will have a chance to upgrade a normal item to a unique item, or it will destroy the item if it fails. And this is a corruption. So when your item is perfect and you don't want to modify it anymore, you would then take this and then corrupt it. I don't recommend doing that. And it will do random stuff unless you have a backup. I don't recommend doing that. But it will do random stuff, like it could add stuff, take stuff away, add a gem socket to items that's not intended to add a gem socket to. But corrupting is a thing. As you can see, I think it cut the all resist in half and took it down a modifier, so which I'll explain that in a bit. And you had divine orbs. This is the main currency everybody trades within the game. But if you look over here, there is, let's do this one. There is multiple modifiers, and if you see my max life, it's 200 to 214 is the range, and it's a 205. So if I were to take, same thing with this is 110, it rolled at the top of the range. Both of these did. This is, I don't even know what's going on, that was just random luck. But if you were to take this and then use it on an item, let's say, let's use it here. This is 11 out of 5 to 15. Let's see if we can try and get 15. It went down. So now it's 7 out of 5 to 15. You can go again. And you can just kind of keep going like that until you get what you kind of want. So now it's 15. That's why divine orbs are the main so expensive and so valuable. It's because people use them to like maximize their gear once they have a piece the way they want to have it. All right, so that summarizes pretty much all the basic currencies in the game. We'll go over these ones real quickly. This can add sockets to a piece of gear. This one will add quality to an armor. This one will add quality to a weapon. This one will add quality to a wand, staff, or scepter. Okay, so something very important to talk about is if you add quality to an armor, it will increase the armor, evasion, energy shield, whatever, making you more tanky. If you add quality to a weapon, it will make the weapon hit harder. If you add quality to a wand, scepter, or staff, it will not make it hit harder. It will increase the quality of the skill that's in there because they come with skills. So for example, this one, it has freezing shard. So it will increase this. It won't increase the other things. I don't agree with it. I think they need to fix it. But casters are pretty strong in this game already. So I don't know what their plans are for that system. I just think it should be more rewarding to use quality. But that's something for another day, like another video or my live stream. Um, there is Abyss, so we'll go over that. These are typically used for leveling because they only work on maximum item level of 64. These here are preserved. So these are typically what you'd use all the time. And then these are if you're really rich. They pretty much make it more likely for you to get a higher modifier, which I'll go over all this. So I'll explain what modifiers are. But pretty much the jawbones for weapons, the ribs is for armor, and then the collarbone is for accessories, being amulets, rings, and belts. You have the preserved, which is for jewels, and then this one's for waystones for maps. And then there's a whole bunch of other items that go around all this, which we'll get into, but the main one that you should probably pay most attention to is a Abyssal Echo, which allows you to re-roll if you're unhappy with your Abyssal modifier choices from the Abyssal Depth. Anyways, let's get into the other part. So on Path of Exiles, there is modifiers. They can roll anywhere between tier 1 to 10. Tier 1 being the best, tier 10 being the worst. So the lower the tier, the better. So for example, this tier 1 modifier has 200 to 214 as the range of what you can fiddle with it with divine orbs. If it was a tier 2 modifier, the range might be, I don't know, like 185 to 199 or something like that. So that would just give you an example. Um, you can also have items drop as higher tiers. So for example, this item on the ground here is a tier 2. This one here is also a tier 2. You can have things drop from tier 1 or base tier, which is this is pretty much tier 1 with nothing next to it, all the way up to tier 5. What that means is whatever tier it is, you subtract that much from the modifiers, and then that's the maximum it can roll as. So for example, you see a tier 6 modifier here. On my ring, you see a tier 4, which I got unlucky with that roll, and then there's some tier 3s here. But you notice there's no tier 5. I mean tier 6. That's because this is a tier 5 ring. It's not possible for it to roll a tier 6 or 7, etc. It can only roll between 1 and 5 because you subtract 5 from the 10 and it gives you 5. So the higher the tier of an item that drops, the more it subtracts from the possible tiers to roll. The lower the tier is on an item, the better the modifier is. I know that's so weird, but that's how it works. You want high tier items, low tier modifiers. It's going to be really difficult for you to remember all the different modifiers in the game. I will put a resource link down below in the description that goes over that. But whenever you're working with a new character, just reference that until you get comfortable with it. And when you change characters, which items you're using, it's going to change with it because every single like strength, dexterity, intellect-based class, some of the modifiers are universally shared, and you'll know them right away. Like resistances are always going to be suffixes, but over time it will get easier. But for starters, definitely just reference the modifier resources. They'll help you a lot. Anyways, you can have 6 modifiers on a piece of gear. 3 prefixes, 3 suffixes. Certain things can only drop as suffixes, certain things can only drop as prefixes. If you are fishing for a prefix and you have 3 prefixes already, you cannot get that prefix unless you remove a prefix and then try to add something else in its place. There are items to help with guaranteeing stuff like that. Anytime you're wondering, you can just come over here and you can search. So let's type in prefix. And you'll notice that you can see while this item is active in your inventory, your next exalted orb will add only prefix modifiers, so on. This one will make it so your chaos orb will only remove prefix. This one will make it so your orb annulment will only remove prefix. This one here, if you go here, it says while you're using the abyssal stuff, it will only add a prefix, so on and so on. So these things make it easier for you to maybe lock on to like where you're trying to make changes on your gear a little bit better. It helps a great deal. All right, so to go over how to get higher tiers, there are a few things besides just tier 5 item. So like if you have a tier 5 item drop, sure, it cuts the range in half, so you can only roll between 1 and 5. But how am I going to get a lot of tier 1s or something like that? So there's a few things. So one is the item level of the item that you see up top here. The item level of the item, the higher the item level, the more likely it is to roll a tier 1. So if you have a tier of an item level 79 item, it's not going to be as likely as an item level 83, 84s are super expensive, or 82 to roll a tier 1 item, or tier 1 modifier. I apologize. The other thing is that you have these crafting materials on the side here. It's not that a normal one of these cannot roll a tier 1. It's just less likely than if you're using a second grade 1 or a third grade 1. So that's pretty much how that works. An orb of annulment, I'm going to end up removing something really good off this if I do that. But an orb of annulment, let's say I wanted to get rid of the stun threshold, which is the one I'd want to get rid of the most. Let's see if the luck continues. Oh my god. What? So, but yeah, so an orb of annulment removes a random thing that you don't want, that you might not want. You typically do it if it's like a 50% chance thing or something like that. Like everything in this game's a lotto, but nothing is pay to win. So an orb of annulment would remove something that you don't want. And then you can then add something onto it. Corruption is very unpredictable. You want to do this once you have an item exactly the way that you want to have it. You have a backup. It's not an upgrade for you in any way whatsoever, or it's equal to what you're using. And it could do things from make the item completely worse by changing every single stat on it, or it could potentially make it better by adding a gem socket to an item that can only have one gem socket. Now it has two. Uh, these are all things that corruption can do, which is pretty nice. You can have like I would say one of the most powerful ones is extra gem sockets. You can have like 3 or 4. Um, so yeah, that's something to keep in mind. These are pretty basic stuff that you should encounter while leveling. These will add gem sockets to weapons and armor, 2 to armor, 1 to weapon, one-hand weapon. The only reason that has 2 is because I corrupted it. But if you have a two-handed weapon, it can have 2 to it, which means that if you corrupt it, you could possibly have 3. Um, and yeah, that about covers crafting for gear. You can increase the quality on accessories, being amulets and rings, to 20% maximum. Um, you can increase the quality of a breach ring only to 40%. And as you can see, I use lightning modifier. What that does is it increases anything that's associated with lightning. So in this case, that's 3 modifiers on this item. One would be lightning resistance, one would be lightning damage. The other one, which you wouldn't really think of, is actually the elemental resistance. So if you sit there and you see like it says 12 to 14 all elemental resistance, but if you actually look at it, it says 19 all elemental resistance. That's because the modifier, I modified it to have um, 40% more. So it does affect that. So like let's say if you have an all resistance thing and you're using a fire or a cold modifier, it will increase the all resistance as well, which is really nice because it associates it with that element. How you would do that, I know my inventory is a mess, but this is an example. Adds quality to enhance attack modifiers on rings or amulets. There's fire, there's cold, there's cast, there's defensive, there's life, there's mana, there's a whole bunch of these. You get them from Zesht. Like, I know I need to clean out my inventory. It's bad. I can't wait for that new abyssal tablet thingy, and I'll probably max that out and still do this mess. But yeah, so it's pretty it's like there's a lot of things, but they're all pretty easy to understand. They're not as complicated as you would think they were, or think they are. If you go into, let me see if I can do an example of this right now since I did a good job on this. So I want more spirit, for example. So let me see if I have enough divine orbs and I didn't mess around too much. I want more spirit. So that's the same case with this. The ancient jawbone it guarantees like a really good modifier, like not guarantees, makes it more likely for a tier 1 modifier. The ancient rib is the same thing except for the armor. Do I have one of these or did I go through all of them? I went through all of them. So then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to say, hey, I want to be able to put a prefix. Here we go. On this because I'm trying to hunt down higher spirit. So I want to be able to put a prefix on this. So I check this off in my inventory, make sure it's highlighted red. On this piece of armor right here, I want it to be a prefix. So I'm going to take this abyssal, I'm going to drop a prefix on it. So now it's dropped a prefix. And then I'm going to go to, which I have this Omen of Echoes. So there's a lot of other items that you can use for messing with stuff. You'll have to search around in here and look over things, experiment because there's a lot. But pretty much in some way or another, they all kind of modify or help out with your crafting. Well, let's say I want to add a prefix, which I just did, but I want to guarantee it more. Like I want to roll, so I'm trying to get spirit. So I'm gonna go over here. I have my Abyssal Echoes activated. You have to have it activated before talking to it, and it is going to consume one, whether you roll or not. So now I go over here. I'm going to toss this item in here, and I'm going to roll. And it looks like 43 spirit, and 43 spirit's actually a low one, so I'm going to re-roll and hope that I get higher spirit. And I did not, sadly. So that's unfortunate. So we're going to toss this in here and just take what we can take. And then we would have to try again. Since this has a lot of modifiers on it that I like, and it's not likely to remove the one that I don't want, I'm going to just add some stuff on there as an example later. I'll probably do that. To have more of like a 50% chance of things that I wouldn't want. Like it's less likely to remove things I want to hold on to, like these two or these three. But yeah, so that in a nutshell is kind of an example of how the crafting system works on this game. I'm going to get into, well, one other thing that you can do is there's fractured. Now there has to be 4 on here in order to lock something in place. I don't think I have enough to buy a fractal orb right now. I don't, but it's super expensive. Um, but you can fracture and it'll pretty much do a random stat. It'll pick a random one of these and it will lock it in place. And then that cannot be changed. That one will not be changed. It would suck if it picked this one. So probably try and remove that. But yeah, that cannot be changed. Whatever item that is, like whatever modifier that is, it won't be able to be changed. Not too bad. So that's one point. They might add it back into the game. I don't think it's currently in the game right now. But what there used to be is the ability to roll beyond tier 1 or below tier 10. And pretty much there is something called sanctification, which is kind of like corruption, where you can sanctify an item. It's like corruption, and it's not guaranteed to corrupt the item. So you can sanctify multiple times. It's just sometimes it has a high chance, I think, to corrupt it, so you can't do anything with it afterwards. But pretty much what sanctification does is it doesn't just re-roll the ranges like a divine orb would. It actually can re-roll, move the tiers. I shouldn't say re-roll because that means random. It can move the tiers up 1 or down 1. So that means it's possible to get above a tier 1 and get like a tier 0. That means it's possible to get below a tier 10 and get like a tier 11. I don't know why you would sanctify something that low. You wouldn't, but it's something that might come back into the game that we used to have in the game. And I don't think that that's even something we can do anymore. Let's see. Whoops. I guess they are still in the game. So yeah, you can sanctify things with Orb of Sanctification, moving things up a tier or down a tier. Um, what else? Okay, so you can add quality to Flask, and you can also corrupt Flask. So that's something to keep in mind. You can use higher crafting materials on Flask. As you notice, these Flasks are tier 5, but then this, because I don't really use mana. But this Flask here, it's tier 1 for both things, and it removes from mana because I don't use mana. So there you go. If you go into, pull one of these. Oh, and you guys should be familiar with these ones by the end of the leveling process, but in case you're not, let's take some out, and let me do an example here for this process. Let me go ahead and take off one of my main skills I use. There we go. Okay, so if you notice, you can add quality to the skills. On top of the fact that you can add quality skills, you can also corrupt skills. This skill has one extra level from corruption. So it's possible for a skill to get quality or an extra level from corruption. If you look in my bank here, you'll notice that this one has 3% increased quality from corruption. And quality differs based on what the skill is. So like sometimes it might be more damage, sometimes it might be a larger range. I don't know, depending on what the skill is, it could last longer. Let's see if we can make ourselves a better shield wall. So we're going to use the maximum level rank we can use, which is 20. So then now we have ourselves a 20 shield wall. Put that back on my bar. If you use a lesser jewel, you'll add 1. You don't have to do all of these. You can skip. All like, so it's, you don't have to do 1, 2, and then 3. You can just use the greater, the perfect one, and it will add 5. If you use a greater jewel, it will add 4. And then if you use a perfect jewel, it will add 5. I think I forgot to take them out. I did forget to take them out. You can then add quality to it by gem cutting it. So now it's maximum quality. And then you would corrupt it, which it gave 23% quality again. So it's similar to the one I have in the bank. It's hoping for higher quality or like a skill level and quality or something like that. But that gives you an idea of how you can even maximize your skills at the end of the day. And you can even see the damage difference comparison between the quality and the skill rank. So it's saying it's more damage to have the skill rank. So yeah, I hope this guide was helpful. I think I might have forgot to cover Orbs of Alchemy, but pretty much Orbs of Alchemy, we use those for jewels. And no, I did cover Orbs of Alchemy. I covered Orbs of Alchemy on the ring here. Yeah, so that's it. I plan to make more guides like this later because I very much enjoy this game. And I want newer players to be able to understand and be able to enjoy the game as well. I tend to do a lot of off-meta stuff. I like making my own builds. One, it's fun for me. Two, it's way cheaper. If you're not like following meta, everything's not as expensive. And when you do buy something that might cross with meta, it's not, you have the money for it, right? Like, or the currency, divine orders for it, whatever. You don't have to worry about whether or not it's gonna break your pocket for every last little upgrade that you get. But in general, I find making my own stuff way more fun than following under somebody else's stuff. But I get everybody's different, and I hope that um this was helpful, and if people want to sit there and they want to theorycraft with me on my live stream and figure out different ways that we can make different builds for everybody, that'd be lots of fun. So make sure you check out my Twitch down below, and I'll also put the resource guide for the modifiers there. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.